Okay, what are you saying, people, and welcome back to another weekly Forex analysis. Now, before we get into this, make sure you subscribe to the channel and also leave a like. That's all appreciated. And if you haven't already, make sure you join us on the Telegram channel. I'll leave a link to that in the description. So make sure you go check that out because I'll be posting a lot of different training setups throughout the week and you don't want to be missing out on that. But like I said, we've got another weekly Forex analysis. So let me stop talking and let's get into it. First up, we have Euro USD. Okay, so Euro USD on the daily chart, you can clearly see we had a breakout of our consolidation that we've been having for quite a period of time. And as you can see, we're kind of retesting that same area. As you can see, previous support throughout the market here, now flipped to resistance. So you can see we're actually retesting it now. So far, we are holding at that resistance. So we could be seeing another move to the downside and price continuing that move to the downside as we had pushed the upside. So you do expect some retrace, bit of consolidation, break up to the downside and price going finding some support before continuing that upwards trend. And as you can see here, previous resistance for us there, again resistance. So it's a nice place where we could potentially be seeing price head to if we decide to continue on that downwards trend. And if we do get here, we could be seeing the 200 average going meeting price there as well, and we could be seeing potentially a nice long setup for Euro USD to continue to the upside. As of yet, we are holding that resistance and we do expect to move to the downside. However, if price does break above and start to travel between this resistance and support, we'll probably treat this as a false breakout and see price continue to range until we break up through this higher resistance up here. Then potentially we'll see Euro USD continue that upwards trend and still travel higher. But so far we are looking for moves to the downside with price holding that resistance and expecting a move to the downside for Euro USD. But overall, the trend is still to the upside, and you can see with the higher time frames, like the monthly, if I draw my trend line in the market, the monthly time frame, as you can see, test there, another test there, broken out of that area of that trend line. So potentially could be seeing price continue in a new upwards trend on the higher time frame if this is not a false breakout. So the momentum is definitely to the upside in the higher time frames, but from a daily point of view and from a weekly point of view, we do expect price to come and go and find some support in the market and retrace a little bit before continuing in that bullish trend. So yeah, we'll be looking for short opportunities for Euro USD, expecting a move to continue to the downside and potentially go and test areas like so. Now let's take a look at USD JPY. Okay, so for USD JPY on the daily chart, you can clearly see we've got a support level there in the market, but we do have this strong trend line that price is respecting quite well and keeping it moving to the downside. As you can see, multiple tests of this trend line, and until we break above it, we probably expect price to continue and slowly leak back down to test this same support area on the daily chart. On the weekly chart, it is a very strong support area. As you can see, multiple tests of this area, push the upside there, very big push, again wick rejection, again push the upside again and again. So a very strong area of the market where you do expect the market to potentially reverse to the upside, but until we break through that trend line there on the daily chart, we'll probably expect price to eventually go and test this area again, or if not, go and break through it and continue to the downside. So if you see price break next week above this trend line, then potentially could be seeing price go and test our 200 moving average there on the daily chart, as you can see so, or go and test our trend line that's slightly higher up. As you can see, we got a test here, another test there, another test there, so 3 clear tests on that trend line. So you could be seeing a fourth if we go and break through that initial trend line that we got running through the market. But as you can see, prices are respecting it quite nicely, and we could be seeing a move to the downside to go and test that same support area again. And whether we break through that support area, we can see the market continue further to the downside. But if we do hold and go and eventually break that trend line, this is where we're expecting the market to go. So we'll wait for early next week to see what the market does, and then we could be either looking to buy the market if we go through the trend line, or if the market continues and breaks through the support, we'll probably expect price to go a lot further. Let's take a look at USD CAD. Okay, so USD CAD on the daily chart, you can clearly see we've got a strong downtrend in the market here, but we do have potentially a reversal or just a longer pullback on USD CAD. As you can see, we've slowly been creeping up since we found support in the market around here, and on the weekly chart you can see why we found that support. If I just draw my level across there, you can see previous support for us, push to the upside, again big push to the upside, so we came out to test the area as well. So you do expect it to have the support, and you can see that's exactly what happened. But from a weekly perspective, we're coming up to an area of the market that has rejected the market previously. As you can see with the gap in the market there, push to the upside as well, a couple of dojis around that area as well. And then you can see that last week I was saying we're at this level, so if you see price break above it, potentially see price climb higher for USD CAD. But you can see we have had a bearish reaction from this level, and as you expected, previous support turns into resistance for us, and you can see we've got that bearish candle there on the weekly chart. Whether that means that the price can start to continue to the downside again is not clear. As you can see, the bearish candle is quite small compared to the previous bullish candle, so we'll probably have to read price more on the daily chart to find that out. But from a weekly point of view, the momentum is still to the upside. This could easily just be a retrace and price continues to go and break through that level to go higher. If we flick to the daily chart, you can see that we've had a slight move to the downside, but it looks like we're coming to test a trend line that we've got going through the market here on the daily time frame. As you can see, a test, and we're having another test there. So if price decides to hold at this trend line, potentially see price climb higher and potentially go and test that 200 moving average for us on the daily if we go and break through that weekly resistance line. So for USD CAD, we could either be seeing a move to the upside to go and test that 200 moving average if we hold at this trend line, or if we see price break through this trend line, potentially see that overall downtrend continue for USD CAD. In that case, we'd just be looking for pullbacks and seeing USD CAD continue to the downside. Now let's take a look at Euro GBP. Okay, so for Euro GBP on the daily chart, you can see that we've come from this area in the market and we've just been slowly moving to the downside. And I've been explaining that this area in the market is a very strong area. As you can see, since 2016, we've just been rejecting from this area and having very strong moves to the downside. So you can see very strong area where you do expect a move to the downside to happen from a weekly and daily perspective. And as you can see from the daily chart, we've just been creeping to the downside. On the weekly chart, I was talking about this area in the market last week. As you can see, previous resistance for us there, pushed to the downside, broke through that resistance with this strong bullish candle. So that's going to act as support for us now. But as you can see, that we've actually just creeped through and broken through that level. I was saying that last week, if we see price hold at this level, potentially see price creep up higher again and go and test our weekly resistance. But you can see that did not happen, and we had price break through this area of support and close below it. So now this is going to act as resistance. I'm probably expecting Euro GBP to continue lower now. As you can see, this would be at resistance. So if price was to come back and test it on the lower time frames, like the daily or the 4H, could be seeing price continue lower for Euro GBP, and potentially go and see price go and test the low down here eventually, or go and test our 200 moving average for Euro GBP on the daily chart. But we're definitely expecting Euro GBP to continue to the downside unless we go and break above this area, this level again. But for now, we're underneath it. It's going to act as resistance. So we're going to be looking for pullbacks to continue Euro GBP to the downside. Okay, up next we've got AUD USD. Okay, so for AUD USD on the daily chart, you can see we have this big push to the upside, this big bullish trend in the market. But we're probably seeing potentially this trend come to an end. As you can see, we had a big push to the downside, breaking through that trend line as we were expecting, and potentially be seeing price having a pullback now and expecting price to continue with that bearish trend. As you can see, previous support for us in the market there, push to the upside, and again that's going to act as a resistance for us. And you can see we initially had a nice bearish reaction there, but towards the end of the day we had price pull back a little bit, giving us this wick. So potentially could be seeing Monday's candle go and fill that wick and then continue that pullback and price continue to the downside. If that's the case, we're aiming for price to come and test our 200 moving average there. And also we've got this level lining up with that 200 moving average as well. As you can see, nice support for us. Initially had this big push to the upside from that same area. So if that push to the upside was a pullback and we see price continue with that bearish move, that's where we're expecting price to come to before we see any major reversals for AUD/USD. But if you do see price start to climb higher and break through this area in the market here, then potentially could be seeing price continue to the upside for AUD/USD and that trend continue, or see price go and test that same trend line that we had a break out of. But if you do see price break out of this level that we've highlighted, again, we could be looking for longs in the market and expect AUD/USD to continue higher. But for now, we're expecting this just a pullback in the market and see price continue to the downside, where we can target that 200 moving average there on the daily chart. Okay, so we're on to NZD CAD now. Okay, so for NZD CAD on the daily chart, you can see we do have this uptrending market. As you can see, test here, multiple tests there, again another test, again another test. So you can see we are in an uptrend market, but it does look like we're running out of steam. As you can see, price is starting to get a lot more move to the downside in the market and failing to make those higher highs. As you can see, our previous high was here, and then we failed to make another high and really had a move to the downside from this area in the market. So we're due another test of this trend line as well. And if I zoom in, you can see that we do have some resistance here in the market. And now if we extend it across, it's going to act as resistance for us there again. And you can see resistance, push the upside, breaking above, treat that as a false breakout essentially. And you can see prices retesting that same area again. So we expect that resistance to hold and potentially give us a nice move to the downside. So you could be looking for some entries to go short on NZD CAD from this area if we do hold at this area. If we see price break above, and then we'll probably expect price to creep higher and continue with that upward trend. But for now, if that price holds at that area, we could be looking for shorts on like 4H or the hourly and expect potentially another test of that trend line down there. But from a higher time perspective, like the weekly and the monthly chart, so this is the monthly chart. If I draw our downward trend line in the market, as you can see, initially test there, another test there, and you can see multiple tests there as well. So this is from a monthly point of view, and you can see we're actually in a downtrending market. So we could be seeing overall that move to the downside start to come in now in the market from a monthly point of view, and see a nice move to the downside. So with that in mind, we're probably expecting that trend line on the daily chart to eventually come to an end and see price break through that trend line and continue to the downside for NZD CAD. But as of yet, we still haven't broken through that trend line, but we do expect another test for NZD CAD. So again, looking for the shorts for NZD CAD at this area in the market here, as long as we hold. But if you do see price break above, you can wait for the retest and then look to go long for NZD CAD. Up next is GBP NZD. Okay, for GBP NZD on the daily chart, you can clearly see we've got a nice support area there in the market. As you can see, previous support there a couple of times, nice push to the upside, and again another push to the upside. We do have this trend line running through the market currently. As you can see, couple tests of the trend line there, another one there, and again another one there. We have that big move to the downside, so it could be seeing another move to the upside to go and test that trend line again. And as long as we've got that 200 moving average there as well on the daily chart, you could be seeing price head to. So yeah, we're expecting GBP NZD to continue to the upside. And as you can see, we had a nice push to the downside as price went to go and found some previous resistance, now turns support for us. So now expecting GBP NZD to continue to the upside, and we could just be looking for those pullbacks in the market and look to ride that move to the upside to go and potentially go and test that trend line that I've been talking about, or that 200 moving average that we have going through the market there on the daily chart. From a higher time frame point of view, if I actually go to the monthly chart, you can see that we actually do have an uptrend in the market here. As you can see here, multiple tests here, 4 tests there, again another test there, and again we're having another test there of the market. So you can see we're in an uptrend on the GBP NZD monthly chart there. So overall, we do expect price to eventually give us another move to the upside unless we go and break this monthly trend. But you can see with price action on the weekly chart, big bullish candle that we had a couple of weeks ago, doji now. But you can see the overall momentum is the upside, and we are expecting that to continue as long as we don't go and break that monthly trend line. But yeah, for GBP NZD, we're expecting price to continue to the upside as long as we stay above this level here. And again, just looking for those pullbacks as price continues to the upside and potentially go and test that trend line or the moving average on the daily chart. Okay, on to CAD JPY now. Okay, so for CAD JPY on the daily chart, you can see we do have this upward trend in the market. going through the chart. As you can see, a couple tests of this trend line, well actually 3, initially one there, again there for a little bit of a false breakout, and again another test of the trend line there. We had that push to the upside. Price went and found some resistance around here in the market. As you can see, previous resistance pushed to the downside, and again resistance there, failing to create another higher high. Then ultimately came and broke through that trend line, and potentially could be either seeing another false breakout like we had initially back here, or price start to give us a new downward trend in the market. And as you can see, we came back to retest that same trend line a couple of days ago, and now we had a move to the downside. As you can see, we do have another wick as well, as price got rejected, but we could easily see Monday's candle go and fill that wick, and then price continue to the downside. As you can see, we came up to test that 200 moving average on the daily chart as well with that trend line. So again, a bit of resistance in the market, and if price does hold at this area, we could easily be seeing price start to roll over and CAD JPY continue to the downside. And if I expand to the weekly chart, you can see that the overall trend in this market is to the downside. We haven't quite had another test of that same trend line. As you can see, initially a test there, again there, and again there. We haven't initially had a test of that trend line there. We could potentially be seeing price just continue and the upwards trend and go and test that trend line before we see another swing to the downside. But then again, we have broken through that daily trend line there, and we could easily be seeing that overall weekly bearish trend of the market just continue and see price continue to the downside from there. But then again, if we're going to see that push to the upside, we need price to close back above our trend line there in the market, and again that's going to act as support for us, and then we could be looking to go long for CAD JPY to go and test that same trend line. But as of yet, it looks like we're still holding below that trend line. It's going to act as a resistance, and then potentially be looking for those shorts for CAD JPY to continue to the downside and continue with that bearish trend in the market. Then again, you could just be looking for those pullbacks on the lower time frames and taking advantage of that downwards trending market. Let's see what's happening with GBP USD. Okay, so for GBP USD on the daily chart, you can see we do have this upward trend in the market here. As you can see, test there, another test there, and it looks like we had another test there, as long as for the 200 moving average as well on the daily chart. And we do have our key level going through the market there as well that I've been talking about. You can see support there, push to the upside, resistance, push to the downside. Again, it's acting as support. And so far, we've actually had a move to the upside for GBP USD. As you can see, we do have a bit of resistance in the market here. As you can see with this trend line here on the daily time frame, initially a test there, another test, and now we're having another test of that trend line. So if we see price break above this trend line, we could be looking to go long for GBP USD. As you can see, we do have an uptrend in the market, and if we break above, potentially see price continue in that upwards trend, and you can look to go long on the pullbacks for GBP USD. But we do see price go and eventually break through the trend line and also break through our level here, then potentially be seeing price continue to the downside for GBP USD. Because if I go into the monthly time frame now, and you can see we're effectively having a range in this market. So if I draw the level in, you can see that we are at some resistance on the monthly time frame, and if I draw this level across, you can see previous resistance here, resistance there again, resistance there again, and we do have our support in the market along here. As you can see, support, support, support. So effectively we've just been ranging for GBP USD for quite a long time now. Unless we see a breakout of this level here of the resistance, then that's where we're expecting that real bullish trend to kick in for GBP USD. But as you can see, we're at that resistance, and the previous month gave us a engulfing candle to the downside. So you can see the momentum from a monthly point of view that does look like that market is holding. So you have to be a bit wary of that, but could easily be seeing another move to the upside to go and test that same area again before either breaking it or having another move to the downside. So if we do see a break of that trend line on the daily chart, we wouldn't expect the monthly to take control and see a longer move to the downside to potentially go and test that area again. But if we do stay above that trend line, we're expecting price to continue and go and test that resistance on the monthly there again. But so far we are a little bit stuck at that trend line that I'm speaking about. If we see a break of it, we can be looking to go long, but then again, if we see a break of the initial daily trend line, then we can look to go short for GBP USD. So we'll find out in the early days next week, see what price is doing. Then we look to see if we can go long in the market and expect price to go higher, or see if a break, and then we look to go short on the pullbacks for GBP/USD. And last, we've got GBP CAD. Okay, so for GBP CAD on the daily chart, you can see we have a nice support area there in the market. As you can see, if I draw that across, there's our support area holding price above it, and then we have our resistance there holding price below it. So from a daily point of view, there's no real direction going through the market. As you can see, we're sort of just ranging sideways. If I go to the weekly, we see we do have a slight downward trend in the market, as you can see here with this downward trend line, multiple tests of this trend line here, and I'll be talking about it for some time. But you can see we are holding to the downside. Unless we go and break through that trend line, then we can probably see a nice move to the upside. But currently we are respecting it and currently moving in that downward trend on the weekly time frame. Daily, we're just moving sideways, and you can see recently our price come back and pull to this area in the market here. As you can see, previous resistance pushed to the downside, broken above, now acting as support. And you can see with the bullish candle we had on Friday, we had a nice engulfing candle as price found support here in the market and looked to push higher. So with GBP CAD, we'll probably expect price to continue in the upward trend. As you can see, we're holding in that area and potentially just be looking for the pullbacks as price continues higher, and potentially go and see price go and test our weekly trend line again. But if you do see price go and break below this support area here, then that's going to turn resistance and probably see a longer move to the downside for GBP CAD to go and test our support area again down here. Unless we break through that, then we'll probably expect price to go even lower and probably start a nice bearish trend for us. But as of yet, daily chart just moving sideways, and since we had a nice break above this area and acting as support, we'll probably expect GBP CAD to continue higher, and again just be looking for those pullbacks and probably aiming for that weekly trend line. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the video. So I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure you subscribe to the channel and also leave a like. That's all appreciated. If you agree or disagree or just have any questions, make sure you leave a comment down below and I'll make sure I'll get back to you. But till the next one, I will see you later.